Hello and welcome to today's LinkedIn Live. Today, I'd like to talk about the elephant in the room. I'd like to address the deepest frustrations our wellness leaders face in hotels. In the last few weeks, I have had the pleasure of speaking and interacting with over 200 wellness leaders across the globe. And what I found very interesting, and I'm very grateful to them for sharing their deepest frustrations and the strategies they've had to implement in order to navigate successfully through these challenges. And while I was looking through this list of 200 people's frustrations, I found a common thread in all of them and could categorize these deep frustrations into 5 categories. And it's funny, it doesn't matter whether you're in Cambodia or in the UK or in the United States, whether the property you are in is upscale or lifestyle, most wellness leaders faced roughly the same frustrations. And I can assure you, just myself being a wellness leader and also managing a wellness facility not too long ago, these were frustrations I also felt. And I think it's incredibly important we talk about them. So, as usual, I have prepared a presentation for you to actually go over each of these frustrations that our leaders are facing. Now, there are 5 deep frustrations that many wellness leaders in hotels report. Across the board, the common thread that many hospitality wellness leaders seem to report is the never-ending battle, these 5 deep frustrations, and to a certain extent, the harsh truths about the challenges wellness leaders face in hotels. And I think it is important to acknowledge these deep frustrations and to talk about them, because pretending they don't exist or just accepting them as the status quo will not help the future of our industry. So if there are any of these frustrations that I'm about to share, if any of these frustrations resonate with you, know that you aren't alone. Many hospitality, spa, and wellness leaders find themselves in the exact same situation as you. It just happens to be a different hotel, but the pain is the same. So let's dive in. The first deep frustration is inadequate upkeep of facilities. It's one of the main challenges we encounter as wellness leaders, and it has a profound impact both on our guests, our wellness teams, and I'd also add the performance of our wellness departments. So the issue is that when it comes to allocating capital expenditure, or CapEx as we normally call them in hotels, wellness departments are often left with negligible sums to maintain existing equipment, fix those that aren't working optimally, or adding new ones to keep up with guests' demands, let alone meeting the expectations of a 5-star hotel. And this is a huge frustration because it leads to, first, unhappy guests. Guests spending hundreds to thousands of dollars on a luxury experience expect 5-star service, including top-notch wellness facilities. However, due to budget constraints, these facilities many times fall short of expectations. How many times have wellness leaders had to navigate nasty falls due to slippery floors in the pool and hydrothermal areas, or saunas that aren't hot enough because the temperatures have been decreased to reduce costs, or malfunctioning steam rooms? And what about worn out gym equipment? This then leads to team discomfort. Wellness teams are constantly put in the uncomfortable position of apologizing to guests for out of order facilities or malfunctioning equipment. The inadequate upkeep of facilities erodes the guest experience and adds unnecessary stress to the team's daily operations. And worst of all, is the financial impact. The wellness department suffers on multiple fronts. One, on the revenue front, potentially losing revenue because of having to offer comp treatments to angry guests or not being able to offer complete wellness experience at top price because of out-of-order facilities. And on the second front, it also suffers on the cost side. Many times, the wellness department incurs increased costs due to the band-aid solutions they need to resort to. For example, hiring additional staff to ensure guests' safety in compromised areas like the hydrotherapy pool. So, inadequate facility upkeep poses a triple challenge. It diminishes the guest experience, places a burden on wellness teams, and has financial implications that affect the entire hotel's bottom line. And this is a huge frustration for wellness leaders. The second deep frustration is what I call budget leftovers. It's the second most significant challenge we face, and it weighs heavily on wellness leaders in hotels because they essentially have the odds stacked against them. So the issue is that during budget allocation, other departments such as room and food and beverages that typically generate far more in revenue are given priority. And one could understand that. So they secure substantial budgets for their operational needs and marketing support. However, when it comes for the spa and wellness department to make its case, the director of finance often provides whatever budget is left, which is typically far less generous and barely covers the bare minimum the wellness department needs for essential operating supplies. Now, the challenge is that this leaves wellness leaders at a disadvantage. Not only do they receive limited budgets for essential supplies, but they also have to meet the brand and quality standards. They must ensure that guest amenities, even in the non-revenue generating areas like the gym and changing rooms, meet brand and guest expectations. And what makes the situation even more frustrating is that these extras are essentially part of the room rate. Guests pay a premium for their stay and they expect top-notch wellness amenities. However, the budget allocated to wellness barely covers these costs, and the financial burden falls on the wellness department's profit and loss, while the entirety of the revenue is allocated to rooms. So the conundrum is that wellness leaders strive to provide exceptional guest experiences, but the budget limitations and unfair distribution of rates hinders their efforts. There's this disconnect between what guests expect and what the wellness department can realistically offer. The lack of revenue share or fair cost distribution only compounds this frustration. So in summary, budget leftovers is a real challenge for wellness leaders in the hospitality industry, and it ends up becoming a huge frustrating paradox. On the one hand, we want to provide great wellness services, but on the other, we barely have we have to bear all the costs, but we don't have the pertinent revenue reflected on our wellness P&L. The third deep frustration is what I call scarce upskilling. It's the third significant obstacle we face, and it has a profound impact on our ability to manage such a complex business. So the issue is that traditionally, spa, one of the very few direct revenue generating wellness offerings in hotels, only represents about 1 to 3% of total hotel revenue. As a result, training budgets are often limited. And when they are cut, it's typically leadership development that suffers. And this becomes a huge frustration for wellness leaders because it leads to, one, reliance on product brands. With high therapist and other specialist staff turnover, the wellness department often has to rely on product brands to train the therapists and teams. And while brands do their best, this approach understandably lacks the depth and breadth of training needed for effective leadership. And second, lack of investment in leaders. The core problem is the insufficient investment in developing our wellness leaders. Managing a department as complex as wellness is not easy. And without adequate leadership development, many of our leaders find themselves ill-equipped to successfully manage our operations. So in summary, the challenge of scarce upskilling impacts the entire wellness leadership ecosystem. And this is incredibly frustrating. The fourth deep frustration is fragmented support. It's the fourth significant challenge we face, and it places an immense burden on wellness leaders who often feel like they have to navigate the complexities of their department on their own. And the lack of this cohesive support becomes a huge frustration for our wellness leaders because of one, what I call the supply chain challenges. Wellness leaders often find themselves in the position of having to request supplies from various hotel departments. Just to mention a few random examples: food and beverage for refreshments that we need to display in the gym, or going to housekeeping for robes because we need them for our treatments, which can sometimes feel like a constant battle. And this fragmented approach not only consumes valuable time, but can also lead to budget constraints and tension between departments. And two, the pressure in achieving target revenue. Hotel sales and marketing departments don't tend to allocate specific budgets to promote wellness experiences, leaving wellness leaders to rely on their own resourcefulness to secure support from suppliers, and that also to the best of their abilities. So in summary, the fragmented support adds an extra layer of complexity to wellness leadership, and this becomes a huge frustration. And finally, the fifth deep frustration is unrealistic budgets, or rather unrealistic objectives. The frustration of unrealistic objectives often arises during budget time at the end of the year. Because the spa and wellness department is typically classified as a minor operating department, what ends up happening is that in order to maintain a realistic budget for average daily rates, ADR, revenue per available room, RevPAR, and occupancy rates for the next year, hotel GMs and directors of sales and marketing tend to sometimes displace the added pressure from owners in terms of reducing costs and increasing revenue to the minor operating departments, and in our case, wellness. And this becomes one of the deepest frustrations for our wellness leaders, because this means that they're held to incredibly unrealistic budgets. And many times they find themselves in the situation of having to accept the highly inflated and unrealistic budget that has been displaced to their profit and loss to take off the pressure from other departments. The end result? They're constantly seen as the department that underperforms. But it is not because the department isn't performing well. It's because the targets they have been given are practically unachievable, especially considering that they tend to have near no support from sales and marketing to actually sell wellness. So these are the 5 deepest frustrations I wanted to share with you that many wellness leaders in hospitality are facing. And this isn't something new. I remember one of the speakers, I had my first virtual wellness summit this year in June, the Wellness and Hospitality Spotlight, where this fantastic speaker mentioned how wellness leaders today most definitely have been given a seat at the big table. However, And this is what I found fascinating coming from a top professor in a very prestigious hospitality school. He said it was one thing being given a seat at the table and a voice, but it's a completely different thing being heard. And that is what many leaders seem to face. They know they have a seat at the big table. However, many times they simply aren't heard. And this ultimately hinders their ability to make the impact they want because they're struggling to secure adequate resources, maintain facilities in optimal conditions, and meet revenue targets. Now, the solution I want to offer to this conundrum is the following. The root cause of these deep frustrations lies in having the wrong wellness concept for the particular hotel you are in. That is, it is either a liability, risk, or opportunity instead of an asset. It is the type of wellness offering you have that determines the challenges you face as a wellness leader. If your wellness offering is essentially a liability, one that is bleeding money, it will always perform as a liability unless you strategically make it an asset. When you have the right wellness concept for your particular hotels, that is the wellness asset, you can mitigate these frustrations. You can ensure your facilities meet optimum standards. You can make compelling cases for necessary supplies, secure budget for enhancing your business acumen or your teams, garner support from fellow department heads, and demonstrate the direct and indirect revenue generated by your spa and wellness department. So in essence, understanding the role your wellness concept plays in how your hotel can, what I'm trying to say is, in essence, understanding the role your wellness concept in your hotel plays into your frustrations. In essence, understanding the role of your wellness concept in your hotel can transform these frustrations into opportunities for growth and success. With the right approach, wellness leaders can navigate the challenges and successfully achieve their objectives. If you haven't already done so, take my Essence Scorecard. I developed this free tool so that all wellness leaders had available to them a simple yet comprehensive self-assessment of their wellness business, providing them with an accurate temperature reading of their business's health. Identifying your blind spots is the first step toward meaningful action. So hop over to the link provided and take the quiz. It's completely free and it will empower you to make informed decisions for your wellness department success. I will also share the link in the comment section below. So I hope you found these frustrations useful. And you can also excuse my little brain cloud moment I had earlier on. And I guess that's the beauty of doing lives at times. I did want to end this saying that, these frustrations all wellness leaders feel. We all have felt it at one point. And this doesn't need to be the norm. There are other ways of doing wellness, and we can do wellness successfully. And I think sometimes knowledge is power. Knowing what wellness concept we have at hand ensures that we are expending the right energy in the right place instead of trying to just fight a losing battle. So I hope you found that useful and also entertaining with my little glitches. And I wish you all a fantastic day ahead. Take care.